Welcome to Heart Over Gold, the channel where love, kindness, and humanity shine brighter than any fortune. In today's story, Olivia Carter never imagined she would find herself in the opulent estate of the reclusive billionaire, Damon Sinclair. As a single mother struggling to provide for her young son, Ethan, Olivia accepts a job that promises more money than she's ever seen before, caring for the mysterious and elusive man who had disappeared from the public eye after a life-changing accident. The rumors about Damon are chilling, cold, distant, and unapproachable. Many caregivers had quit within weeks of entering his world. But Olivia is determined not to let this opportunity slip away. When she steps into Damon's mansion, the vastness and luxury of the space are overwhelming, and the man she's come to care for is nothing like she expected. Instead of the frail, broken figure she had envisioned, Damon is still powerful. His body is strong and marked by scars, telling the story of a man who has endured. As Olivia helps him in ways she never anticipated, their connection begins to shift, drawing her deeper into his world than she ever expected. This is the story of how Olivia, a woman determined to provide for her son, enters a world far beyond her own, and how her interactions with Damon Sinclair might just change both of their lives forever. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest stories. As Olivia Carter stepped across the threshold of the luxurious estate owned by the infamous billionaire, Damon Sinclair, a wave of isolation hit her immediately. The walls, adorned with masterful artwork, seemed to whisper wealth, and the crystal chandeliers sparkled like a sky full of stars. The expansive space seemed almost too vast to comprehend, enveloping her in a feeling of entering a royal palace. Her old, worn sneakers barely made a sound on the marble floors as she trailed behind Mrs. Holloway, the housekeeper, down the long corridor. "You'll have to start right away," Mrs. Holloway said, casting a sharp glance over her shoulder at Olivia. "Mr. Sinclair is quite the challenge to deal with. Many caregivers before you have quit within the first week." Olivia tightened her grip on her handbag and took a deep breath, determined. Defeat was never an option. As a single mother raising her 5-year-old son, Ethan, Olivia couldn't afford to let this job slip away. The pay was better than anything she had ever received in her career, enough to offer Ethan a stability they had both longed for. Even if it meant taking care of a stranger. Even if that stranger was the infamous Damon Sinclair, the billionaire who had all but disappeared from public life after a devastating accident had left him unable to care for himself. The rumors about him were legendary, cold, unforgiving, and practically unapproachable. The accident had turned him into a recluse, depending only on the staff who worked for him. Now she was about to enter that secluded world. Mrs. Holloway halted before a grand wooden door and gave Olivia a brief, pointed look. "This is his room," she said quietly. "He doesn't like idle chatter. Stay focused and leave personal feelings aside." Olivia nodded, wiping her palms on her jeans. "Understood." With a final glance, Mrs. Holloway pushed open the door. Olivia stepped in and froze. The room was bathed in soft light, grand and elegant, with towering windows draped in heavy curtains. A crackling fire provided a warm, dancing glow on the dark wood of the walls. In the middle of the room, occupying a large wheelchair, was Damon Sinclair, the man she had come to care for. He was nothing like she expected. Olivia had anticipated a frail older man, perhaps weakened by years of isolation, but instead Damon Sinclair had a magnetic presence that was impossible to ignore. His jaw was sharp, faint stubble dusting his chin, and his dark hair was tousled as if he had just woken up. His face was sculpted, the kind you would see on the cover of a magazine, not hidden away in the shadows of a mansion. But it was his eyes that caught Olivia off guard, icy blue, piercing, and so intense they sent a chill straight down her spine. He studied her without saying a word, his expression unreadable. "You must be the new one," he said finally, his voice rich and smooth. "Yes," Olivia replied. Trying to sound confident, "Olivia Carter," she added, but he didn't acknowledge her introduction. Instead, he turned his wheelchair slightly as if dismissing her entirely. "Let's get this over with." His tone was flat. Olivia felt a flutter of nerves but pushed them aside. She had to remain professional. "Do you need help with anything?" she asked, her voice steady. He didn't look at her. "I can manage. You just do your job." With that, he wheeled himself toward the bathroom, leaving Olivia to follow. The bathroom was a marvel, beyond anything she had ever seen. A large glass shower, a deep soaking tub, and floors heated to perfection. Yet Olivia barely had time to appreciate the luxury before Damien halted in the center of the room. "Help me remove my clothes," he commanded. Olivia hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. She had been prepared for this moment, but standing before a man like Damien Sinclair, the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't what she had anticipated. This wasn't just a task. It felt intimate, charged in a way she couldn't explain. Sensing her hesitation, Damien let out a dry, humorless laugh. "What's wrong? Didn't you know this would be part of the job?" She squared her shoulders. "I'm here to do my job." Her hands shook slightly as she reached for the hem of his t-shirt. When she lifted it, her breath caught. She had expected a body that had withered in solitude, fragile and scarred. Instead, what she touched was pure strength. His chest was sculpted, muscles defined beneath her fingers. His body, marked with faint scars, spoke of battles fought and survived, yet his form remained as powerful as ever. She inhaled sharply, determined to keep her composure. But when she looked up, she found Damien's gaze fixed on her. His jaw clenched and his expression was unreadable. "Enjoying the view, Miss Carter?" His voice was low, almost mocking. Olivia's cheeks flushed. She quickly averted her gaze. "I'm here to do my job," she said firmly. He smirked, a glint of something darker in his eyes. "Fine, go ahead." "Get to work," she pressed on, her movements deliberate. Each touch, each look shared between them seemed to shift something in the air. Something unspoken but very real. The water flowed, steam rising in the room as Olivia carefully worked, her hands steady despite the tension between them. Damien broke the silence. "You're quiet today." She hesitated before answering. "I didn't expect you to want small talk." He sighed, clearly frustrated. "I don't, but I also don't like being treated like I'm fragile." Olivia met his gaze, her eyes unwavering. "You're not fragile, Mr. Sinclair. You've been through something that's left its marks, but you're not broken." He studied her for a long moment. "So you think I'm strong?" She nodded. "Absolutely." His lips twitched slightly as though fighting a smile. Then, as quickly as the moment had come, it passed. "Turn off the water," he ordered. Olivia obeyed, stepping back as he reached for the towel. He wrapped it around himself with ease, his body stiff but strong. "I'll help you back to your chair," Olivia offered, her voice soft. He paused, as if considering it, before nodding. She steadied him, her hands resting on his arm and back, guiding him with surprising ease. Despite his injuries, Damien's body radiated strength, his every movement firm and deliberate. As she helped him into his wheelchair, their faces hovered just inches apart. His breath was warm against her skin and his grip tightened around her wrist. "Not scared of me, are you?" His question wasn't a challenge, it was something else. Olivia held his gaze, her voice steady. "Should I be?" He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the most reckless." She smiled faintly, stepping back. "Maybe a little of both." For the first time, something shifted between them. Something more than just employer and caregiver. Something neither of them understood, but both felt. That night, as Olivia lay awake in the guest room, her thoughts lingered on the events of the day. Damien Sinclair was a world apart from hers, and yet she felt inexplicably drawn to him. What was it about their connection that felt like fate? The next morning, as she prepared for her shift, Mrs. Holloway came to find her. "You exceeded my expectations," Mrs. Holloway said with a smile. Olivia grinned. "I can be quite determined." Mrs. Holloway's expression became serious as she poured her tea. "Be careful with Mr. Sinclair. He's a man who doesn't let people in easily. And when he does, it never ends well." Olivia swallowed, her silence thick with unspoken words. She wasn't here to get involved, only to do her job. But something told her that this job, this man, was far more complicated than she had ever imagined. Repeated to herself. Later that afternoon, she stepped into Damon's room, anticipating the familiar routine. Instead, she discovered him at the window, his hands firmly clutching the arms of his wheelchair, his jaw set in a tight line. "Is everything all right?" she inquired with care. "Am I looking all right?" His tone was incisive, cutting. Olivia let out a gentle breath. What transpired initially? He remained silent. He ran a hand through his hair, each movement dripping with frustration. My lawyer was present, he murmured. Additional documentation, further conversations regarding my situation and my ability to keep overseeing my business. His enterprise, the realm he'd crafted from nothing, the one he had to leave behind after the incident. Olivia observed him intently. What are your thoughts on this? His gaze locked onto hers. Could you clarify what you mean?
Do you believe you're ready to return?
She inquired plainly, his jaw clenched. I doubt anyone will regard me with any seriousness in this condition. That's not what I requested. He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. For the first time, he appeared genuinely unsure. Olivia advanced with purpose. Believe in yourself, Damien, but only if you cease to view yourself as the person you once were and begin to embrace the individual you have become. He let out a sharp breath, turning his gaze aside. And who might that be, Olivia? She melted, lowering herself to the ground before him, compelling him to look into her eyes. She spoke softly of someone who continues to battle, a person who continues to persevere despite their own doubts. Damien gazed at her, an enigmatic shift flickering across his face. Suddenly, he extended his hand. His fingers grazed her cheek, lingering for a moment that felt like an eternity. Olivia's breath hitched. She ought to have distanced herself. She ought to have, yet she chose not to, nor did he. They found themselves teetering on the brink of an unknown peril, an experience for which neither was ready. It was inevitable that one of them would eventually succumb. Olivia ought to have distanced herself. She was aware of that, yet as Damon's fingers brushed gently against her cheek and his intense blue eyes delved into hers, closing the distance would be a simple task to surrender. Yet just before she could act impulsively, something she might come to regret, Damien blinked as if suddenly aware of his actions. His jaw tightened and his hand fell away from her skin as though it had been scorched. Go, he commanded suddenly, pivoting his wheelchair to face the fireplace. His voice carried a roughness tinged with an elusive quality she couldn't fully identify. In pain, annoyance, or was it the identical yearning she experienced? Olivia paused, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Damien, I instructed you to leave. The atmosphere surrounding them had transformed, heavy with unexpressed words. Whatever transpired in that instant, he was unprepared for it. Perhaps she wasn't either. In silence, she pivoted and exited the room, her trembling hand resting against her chest as she closed the door softly behind her. In the days that followed, the dynamics between them shifted. Damien seemed aloof, chillier than it was previously. He avoided her eyes as she assisted him with his clothing. He ceased making sarcastic comments in his therapy sessions. He responded with brief, terse sentences, maintaining a strictly professional demeanor in their exchanges. It was painful. She was unaware of how deeply she had come torely on his attention, on his presence until it vanished. Mrs. Holloway observed. Whatever transpired between you two, the housekeeper whispered. One evening, mend it before it escalates. Olivia scowled. I'm not quite sure I understand your point. Mrs. Holloway cast her a glance filled with understanding. He's retreating once more, and the previous occasion that occurred, it required months to encourage him to even attempt to advocate for himself. A sharp twinge of remorse lodged itself in Olivia's heart. This was not solely about her. Damien had endured a year ensnared in his own thoughts, believing he was worthless, shattered. Yet she had witnessed his prowess in battle. She had witnessed the blaze in his gaze as he battled through the agony, the resolve in his clenched jaw as he persevered in therapy. She had to keep him from falling back into that abyss, even if it required facing whatever tension was simmering between them. That evening, she rapped on his door. Quietude, she rapped on the door once more. Damien, it's me. Nothing yet. With a weary breath, she eased the door ajar. He found himself by the window once more, gazing at the rain as it relentlessly battered the glass. His hands clutched the arms of his wheelchair with a fierce intensity. His whole body coiled in tension. You're ignoring me? Olivia remarked, shutting the door firmly behind her. I'm not overlooking you, he murmured. I'm allowing you some room. Her brow furrowed in discontent. Distance from what? Damien let out a quick breath, raking his fingers through his hair. From my perspective, from whatever transpired between us the other day, Olivia felt a constriction in her throat. It was merely inconsequential. His lips contorted into a smile devoid of humor. Indeed, silence prevails. She folded her arms across her chest. What's with your behavior? What makes you want to distance yourself from me? Damien finally turned to face her, and for the first time in days she glimpsed the tempest brewing in his eyes. Because I can't desire you, Olivia, he said, his voice strained. I am not the person you need. Her breath hitched. She whispered, That's not your choice to make. Do I not? His jaw tightened. Gaze upon me. I find it difficult to maintain my balance. I am unable to provide you with an ordinary existence. Nor can I offer the future you deserve. And you, his voice wavered. Olivia, you have a son. You deserve consistency, not someone who struggles to manage their own life. Olivia felt a heaviness in her chest. She yearned to rattle him to open his eyes to her perspective. You really think I care about any of that? She said, stepping closer. Do you really believe I'm unaware of the struggle you face each and every day? You are whole, Damien. You're not distancing yourself from me because you believe you fall short of my expectations. You're distancing yourself due to fear. He swallowed his throat, moving with effort. Absolutely, I feel a sense of fear. Thessalence lingered between them, dense and suffocating. At last he uttered another word. I desire you, Olivia, he confessed, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Exceeding what is necessary, more than I ever imagined I could desire someone again. Her heart pounded fiercely within her chest. Yet it shall not confine you to this existence. He pressed on, his gaze intense upon hers. If you still possess any clarity, it would be wise to step back now before this escalates into something irreversible for both of us. Olivia sensed the heaviness of his words embed themselves profoundly within her heart. He was offering her an escape, an opportunity to depart before she became too intimate prior to his approach. Yet rather than turning away, she took his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. I'm here to stay, Damien. His breath caught in his throat. In that instant, a fragment of his very being broke apart. He drew her closer, his other hand firmly around her waist, guiding her down into his lap. Their lips connected in a languid, yearning kiss. Imbued with all the unspoken words, the repressed emotions, and the moments of tension that had been accumulating between them for weeks. It was unrefined. It was a dire situation. It encompassed all that Owen could desire. Transformed everything. Olivia never intended for things to unfold this way. She had arrived at this house seeking employment, a salary, a means to provide her son with the security he truly needed. However, at that moment, she found herself in Damien Sinclair's embrace, his hands firmly holding her waist, their lips meeting in a kiss that stole her breath away. This was entirely flawed in every aspect, and yet she found herself unable to break free. His touch ignited a blaze within her, his lips both assertive and tentative, as though he feared she might disappear the instant he released his hold. Yet Olivia remained steadfast, unmoving. This time it's a no. Her fingers wove through his hair, drawing him nearer, intensifying the kiss. She sensed the quick breath he drew, the tension that rippled through his body beneath her touch. For an extended period, he had persuaded himself that he was no longer a man, that his wounds had taken away his strength, his very essence. However, at this moment, he was simply Damien, a man who desired her, and God help her, she desired him as well. Then, in an instant, Damien pulled away from her, his breath uneven. Olivia felt his grip on her waist grow firmer. A silent battle raging within him. She understood that if she didn't put an end to this, if she didn't compel herself to think clearly, they would venture into territory neither of them could reverse, and she was not prepared for that. She leaned in, resting her forehead against his, her eyes fluttering shut. It's time to put an end to this. He released a trembling breath, his fingertips gliding over her skin. I understand. Neither of them stirred. For a brief instant, they remained still, absorbing the essence of one another. Olivia gradually withdrew, rising from his lap and creating a necessary space between them. She embraced herself, steering clear of his eyes. I ought to take my leave. Damien's jaw tightened. Yet he gave a reluctant nod. Indeed, as she began to walk away, his voice halted her just before she could grasp the door knob. This doesn't change anything, he said, his voice raspy. Olivia took a deep breath before casting a quick look in his direction. Does it not? She moved on without seeking a response, for she had always sensed it within herself. Tension hung in the air over the next few days. Olivia made an effort to maintain her distance, attempting to act as if nothing had transpired between them. She concentrated on her duties, maintained short exchanges, and steered clear of staying in the same space for extended periods. However, Damien observed her intently. Whenever she stepped into room, his gaze would find her, searing and unwavering. He remained silent, offering no recognition of the events that had unfolded. Yet he was not obliged to. It was in the way his fingers gripped the arms of his wheelchair whenever she approached, As his jaw tightened each time another person addressed her, as her gaze slipped away, his eyes seemed to deepen with shadows. It was perilous, and yet neither of them appeared able to halt it. As the evening drew to a close and the last traces of her chores faded away, Olivia made her way to Damien's room for one final check before surrendering to the night. She discovered him in his chamber, gazing intently at his reflection in the glass. His shirt lay discarded, exposing the scars that traced down his back and sides, silent witnesses to the accident that had stripped him of everything. His muscles remained defined, his physique robust, yet a fatigue lingered in his gaze that tugged at Olivia's heart. He glimpsed her image in the mirror and shifted a bit. Having trouble finding rest, she paused, contemplating her next move before crossing the threshold. "I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." A fleeting smile danced at the corners of his mouth. "There's a recurring pattern with you." There was no reply from her. Damien observed her intently for a prolonged moment before he spoke once more. "You feel fear," Olivia tensed. "What do you mean?" He pivoted his wheelchair to confront her directly. "Regarding this about us," she gulped. "We do not exist as a unit." His eyes remained steadfast. Deceiver, she let out a quick breath, her fingers tangling in her hair. "Damien, you understand that this cannot be done. What is the reason behind this?" He issued a challenge. "Is it because I'm using a wheelchair? Am I not the person I once was?" "No," she declared with intensity, advancing boldly. "For you remain that person. You possess an unwavering spirit, a remarkable strength, and embody all that she held back." Catching herself before revealing too much, however, Damien managed to seize it, his jaw clenched, fingers digging into the wheels of his chair. "So, what's holding you back?" Olivia gently shut her eyes. Ethan, her child, her whole universe. This extended beyond her alone. It revolved around him, centered on the life she was striving to create for him. She knew she couldn't let herself become entangled in something devoid of promise, lacking any assurance. At last she revealed, "I have a son and he takes precedence." A spark danced in Damien's eyes. "I understand," he murmured gently, "and I would never request you to alter that." She bit her lip, feeling swirling within her on the verge of spilling over. "So please don't request that I remain." Quietude. At last, Damien let out a breath, his fingers tangling in his hair. "If that is your desire," certainly was not, yet it was precisely what she required. With a decisive turn, she walked away once more. The night unfolded in a fitful slumber, her thoughts swirling with visions of Damien, his caress, his kiss, the way he gazed at her as though she were the sole anchor to reality. By morning, she felt utterly drained. She hardly had a moment to gather her thoughts before her phone vibrated. It was the institution of learning. Her heart raced as she replied, "Greetings. Excuse me, Miss Carter. It's Principal Williams speaking. Ethan fell to the floor during class today. Your immediate presence is required." Olivia sensed a chill creep through her veins. Fallen apart. Her child had fallen to the ground. "I'm on my way," she gasped, snatching her coat and hurrying to the door as she extended her hand toward the handle. She unexpectedly bumped into a solid chest. "Is that you, Damien?" He quickly steadied her, a look of concern crossing his face. "Olivia, is something bothering you?" Her breath came in sharp gasps, a sense of dread tightening around her throat. "Greetings, it's Ethan. He fell down. I must take my leave." For an instant, an inscrutable expression flickered across Damien's features. With unwavering determination, he pivoted his wheelchair to face the hallway. "I will accompany you." Olivia blinked, momentarily disoriented. "Damien, there's no need for that. I exist." His voice was unyielding. "Let us proceed." She lacked the energy to engage in a dispute. At this moment, she required his presence, and for the first time, she understood, perhaps she always had. The journey to Ethan's school passed in a haze. Olivia struggled to gather her thoughts, struggling to draw in a breath. Her hands shook as she clutched the steering wheel, her foot pressing down too firmly on the accelerator. "Take it easy," Damon said beside her, his tone steady yet resolute. Olivia's breath quickened, coming in short, frantic bursts. "I just can't. I must reach him." "I know," Damien said, his hand resting gently over hers on the wheel. His touch provided a sense of stability, unwavering and firm. "However, sacrificing yourself won't benefit your son." Her throat constricted and she hesitantly lifted her foot from the accelerator. Damon was indeed correct. Fretting won't lead to any solutions. Yet she was filled with dread. She hardly noticed how Damon's eyes kept darting toward her, worry apparent in every contour of his expression. She hardly registered the way his hand lingered nearby, poised to catch her if she faltered. Her mind was consumed by thoughts of Ethan and the chilling contemplation of what could be. Upon their arrival, Olivia showed no interest in parking correctly. She slammed the car into park and dashed toward the school entrance. Damon trailed closely behind her, propelling his wheelchair with an unexpected swiftness that took her by surprise. The school nurse greeted them at the front office, her demeanor strained. "He's in the infirmary," she stated hurriedly. "Hagaimtu, though he is frail. We suspect it could be fatigue, maybe even dehydration. But we decided to call for an ambulance just to be cautious." Olivia's stomach churned as she hurried past her, bursting into the infirmary, and there he stood. Ethan lay on a cot, his frail form strikingly pale, his vivid blue eyes weary yet alert. "Mother," he whispered faintly. Olivia knelt beside him, gently pushing his curls aside from his moist forehead. "Oh, darling," she murmured. "You startled me." Ethan attempted a smile. "I apologize." With tears stinging her eyes, she pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead. "Oh, no need to say sorry. I have arrived." A figure emerged from the shadows, and she looked up to find Damien standing in the doorway, his face a mask of ambiguity. Ethan turned his eyes toward him. "Who is that?" Olivia paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. Before she had the chance to say anything, Damien maneuvered himself closer and gave a gentle smile. "I'm Damien," he said, his voice gentler than Olivia had ever experienced. "I collaborate with your mother." Ethan's eyelids fluttered momentarily. "Do you hold a position of authority over her?" Damon let out a soft laugh. "Perhaps something along those lines." Ethan observed him intently, his small brows knitted together in intrigue. "You find yourself in a wheelchair." Damien acknowledged with a nod. "I exist." "Will you ever be able to walk again?" Olivia felt a surge of tension, poised to reprimand Ethan for his straightforwardness. Yet Damon merely offered a smile. "I'm not sure," he confessed. "However, I'm diligently addressing it." Ethan pondered this for a moment, then gave a nod of agreement. "That's quite pleasing." In that moment, Olivia observed as the most significant figure in her existence embraced the most intricate individual in her world. She was at a loss for how to handle that. The hospital verified that Ethan was okay, merely suffering from dehydration and fatigue. They suggested taking it easy, staying hydrated, and paying more attention to his diet. Olivia understood the unspoken words between them. They were gently suggesting that she could be contributing more. She had been so absorbed in her work and in Damien that she had overlooked the signs. Guilt noted at her heart, Damien observed. While they lingered in the waiting room, he glanced over at her. "You're placing the blame on yourself?" Olivia emitted a dry chuckle. "Absolutely I am. I am his mother." "I ought to have realized that something was amiss." Damien gave a slight shake of his head. "You're giving it your all." She gulped. "Is it sufficient?" A lengthy silence ensued. In that moment, Damien extended his hand and grasped hers gently. "For him," he remarked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Absolutely, certainly." The gentle caress of his hand ignited a thrill that coursed through her body. She ought to have stepped back. She did not. That night, Olivia remained beside Ethan, gently clasping his small hand as he drifted into a peaceful slumber. She ought to have gone to bed. She felt utterly spent, depleted in every conceivable manner. Yet she found herself unable to move. It wasn't until Damien rolled himself into the room. "I thought you might still be here," he said softly, observing her from the threshold. She let out a weary breath. "I can't bear the thought of leaving him by himself." Damien remarked that he is not by himself. "He possesses you." Olivia gazed up at him, her heart racing within her chest. "Damien, stop," he cut in. "Let's not entertain the idea that this is impossible." Her breath caught in her throat. He maneuvered himself nearer, his gaze intense as it locked onto hers. "Because I believe we have the ability to achieve it." She shook her head, yet he persisted. "Your gaze upon me, Olivia, does not go unnoticed. Your attempts to distance yourself only draw me closer." She shut her eyes, summoning all her strength to withstand him. "This is too much of a gamble for me." "Ethan, I understand," Damien murmured, his tone gentler now. "I promise you I would never do anything to cause him pain." She slowly opened her eyes. What she glimpsed in his expression, unfiltered, vulnerable, authentic, dismantled every fragment of her defenses. With deliberate care, she inclined her body forward, and Damien encountered her at the midpoint. Their lips connected in a kiss that was entirely different from the first. This was not a matter of desperation. It wasn't impulsive. It was correct. For the first time, Olivia found herself daring to think that perhaps, just perhaps, they could evolve into something greater. This kiss held a new essence, a distinct quality that set it apart from the rest. It was not hurried. It was not taken impulsively, it was intentional. Damien's lips brushed gently against Olivia's, relishing the perfect way she melded with him. His hand gently cradled her cheek, his thumb brushing against her skin, sparking a fire within her. She was the first to draw back, panting, her forehead leaning against his. "We really shouldn't be doing this," she murmured. Yet her tone betrayed a hint of uncertainty. Damon breathed out, his fingers remaining entwined in her hair. "So just say the word for me to halt." She shut her eyes, aware that she was unable to. She was reluctant to for an extended period. She had persuaded herself that love was an indulgence beyond her means, that her life allowed no room for something so delicate. Sound certain, however, Damien stood apart. Despite her best efforts to resist, he'd grown significant in her life. For the two of them, a gentle rustling from the bed startled her, and she swiftly turned to find Ethan shifting in his slumber, his tiny hands grasping the blanket tightly. The truth hit hard and fast. She distanced herself from Damien, her voice trembling. "Let's discuss this at a later time." Damien observed her intently, his jaw clenching. He grasped the unspoken words behind her silence. "Not at this moment. Not at this moment." Yet he refused to surrender. "Very well," he whispered. "Until next time." And in spite of it all, in the midst of the turmoil within her, Olivia discovered solace in the thought that there would be a tomorrow. The following morning, Olivia stirred awake to the cheerful sound of laughter. The sound was bright and cheerful, a melody she hadn't experienced from Ethan in weeks. She glided toward the kitchen but halted abruptly at the sight before her. Ethan perched on the counter stool, his feet swinging playfully beneath him while Damon busied himself with cooking. Seated in his wheelchair, he maneuvered with care. Yet there he was, flipping pancakes with an amused expression, while Ethan chatted animatedly beside him. Olivia stepped into what could only be described as the most ordinary scene she'd ever encountered. Took the very breath from her lungs. Ethan pivoted, catching sight of her before anyone else. "Mother, Damien is crafting pancakes." Damon cast a sidelong glance at her, a smirk playing on his lips. "I thought it was only fair to treat you to breakfast after our evening together." Her cheeks flushed with warmth. "Damien," he simply shrugged, his eyes sparkling with playful mischief. "Take it easy." She was referring to the conversation aspect. Ethan narrowed his eyes, peering between them. "What's with the strange behavior, everyone?" Olivia took a moment to gather herself. "We are not. You absolutely are." Damien chuckled softly as he placed a plate of pancakes in front of Ethan. "Have a bite, kid. Fewer words, more bites." Ethan let out a frustrated sigh but complied. While Olivia settled into the chair opposite him, she still found it difficult to adjust to this new reality, having Damien woven into their mornings, their daily rhythm. However, she found it enjoyable, exceeding what is necessary, and that filled her with dread. Later that day, Damien took a moment to speak with her privately. "It's time for a conversation." Olivia let out a weary breath, massaging her temples. "I understand. They had been circling this issue for far too long." Damien inhaled deeply. "I stand by my words from last night." She was aware. She had glimpsed it in his gaze, had sensed it in his embrace. "However, I must understand your position, Olivia," he persisted. "If this is merely a fleeting moment for you, if you don't envision a future here, please let me know now." Her chest constricted. She had devoted so much time evading her emotions, avoiding the chance of something deeper. Yet as she gazed at him now, the man who had battled his way from the shadows, who had welcomed her and Ethan into his home and heart, she realized she could no longer flee. She confessed that she didn't want this to be fleeting. "Yet I feel a sense of fear." Damien inclined his head, moving in closer. "I feel the same way," she gulped nervously. "This goes beyond my own experience." "Ethan, I'm aware," he interjected gently. "I aim to approach this with precision. For the two of you." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "Damien, I love you," he declared, his tone unwavering. "I understand that this will be a challenge. I'm aware that there will be much to unravel. However, I am eager to give it a shot. I desire us." She felt a sting behind her eyes. She desired that as well. Above all else, she released a tremulous chuckle. You truly struggle to provide me with reasons to leave, don't you? Damen wore a sly grin. Excellent, I have no intention of providing you with any. And when she kissed him this time, it was with complete certainty. Embrace courage. Simply adore.